Bro, it all makes sense now. I'm at the gym. I think it was Monday. Today's Wednesday. It was Monday. I'm at the gym, and I saw this girl, and I ain't gonna lie, she was thick. Like, we're not gonna talk about that, but she was doing dumbbell Bulgarian split squats, but she had the lifting strap. Now I've always seen people use the lifting strap on like barbell stuff, deadlifts, rows. That's mostly it for the most part. But I was like, huh, why is she using that for the Bulgarian split squat? And there were two girls. I'd seen another girl do it earlier, and then I was like, all right, I got to figure out like what are these lifting straps doing? Because I know for the barbells, they say they give you a better grip associated with holding on to the bar. But I was like, with a dumbbell, I'm like, is it giving her extra strength to hold on to heavier weight? Like, what is this lifting strap actually doing? Is it holding the weight and she's using her wrist? She's no longer using her hand? Because I didn't quite know how they work. So I was like, all right. So I go over there and I asked her what they do. And she said that it gives it a better surface for her to grip on. So you're still working on your grip strength. The weight sometimes is slippery. All right, we're going to pause on that motion. But the weight, essentially, the handle is too slippery, and so the wraps give you something more friction based to hold on to. So that's why, right? And so I asked her that. I was like, all right, cool. And I walked off, and then one of my homies at the court, he said, oh, okay, you bagged that? And I was like, no, I didn't bag that. What do you mean? He was like, you scared. And it was funny because we laughed it off in the moment, but the truth of the matter is he's right, bro. I thought she looked good. I didn't talk or say anything that even hinted I was interested, right? And I think that's the big misconception about everything in life is the same, but it's all changes up here based on your perspective, right? Approaching her and asking her about what she's doing in the gym for weights, to me, that's normal. I'm like, there's nothing creepy. There's nothing weird about this. There's no way that if somebody asked me what were you doing, I can say, oh, I was doing this. There's no judgment associated with me asking that question, right? So to me, I'm like, oh, no harm, no foul. I can go ask her that question and it's cool. And I'm like, yeah, I talked to a cute girl. Whereas if I know I went over there to ask her number, whether she gave it to me or not, everyone's gonna be like, okay, you hitting on girls in the gym, bro. That's weird. Like there can be negative beliefs about what I was doing, and if somebody questioned me about it, there's no way in myself I felt I could defend it. Whereas to everyone, it could have looked like I was asking for her number, but if they asked me what I was doing, I'd be like, oh, no, I was just asking about a workout, right? I'm immediately outside of that realm of judgment or rejection, societal wise, right? Society rejection from everyone else. And that's what I've realized for me personally. That's where my fear of rejection really comes in. It comes from being judged or seen as an outcast in society. And what's crazy is that as a Christian, God calls us to not be of this world, but just simply in it. So I'm already supposed to be used to being an outcast. Now, am I saying that means I need to go out and talk to every girl and just not care what anybody thinks? Obviously not. It doesn't mean that I just go out and I don't care what anybody's opinion is because I'm like, well, I'm in the world, not of the world, right? But it does give me the perspective to say, in your mind, you're viewing this as a negative thing or potentially having a negative outcome, but why, right? Never had that experience in my life where someone's judged me for going and approaching a girl. Never had the experience where it goes negative or something bad happens out of that, right? So where in my mind am I getting that idea, right? And what it really came down to was, so I grew up in a Christian household in a church. And at church, everyone is kind of viewed as family, right? The girls and the guys, we all play together. We're all just friends. It's like that's his sister, that's his sister. This is my brother. Everybody's just friendly and cordial. So in church, because they talk about sexual purity so often, it's kind of learned that you're not really supposed to talk to another woman of Christ or another girl in that manner, kind of in that way, right? And that's just how it was in our church. It wasn't a rule, but it was kind of an unspoken rule where that's not what you do. And it's the same thing for, different groups that we had that branched out from church, right? It was pretty much the same blanket approach across. And so I grew up in that environment. And so naturally, I just kind of inherited that rule. And, my parents were like, you want to make sure you're respectful and kind and you're not perceived as a, for lack of a better term, essentially, that's something that I think subconsciously I programmed into my mind. And as I got older, started hanging out with different demographics of people in multiple different, backgrounds, settings, and environments. What's societally considered as normal, because of the way that I grew up, it's seen differently by me, right? And that's just something that in my mind, I have to reverse engineer and figure out why that is, right? And on top of that, figure out, once I've reverse engineered, is it something that I actually view as bad? Or are my intentions behind why I'm doing it, are those potentially bad? And that's why there's the hesitation, right? Because, great example, I was out yesterday. I was out yesterday getting drinks with one of my friends. And when I go out one on one with a girl for drinks and we're friends, it's cool. There's no pressure. It's normal. But for some reason, the minute the idea of a date comes into the conversation, I turn into somebody totally different, right? Not as confident. I'm nervous. I'm not sure how any of what I'm doing is going to be perceived. I feel like she's like, oh, he just wants me for one thing. Like, I immediately feel like there's all these um, negative and judgmental perceptions. Thank you. Negative and judgmental perceptions that are being projected onto me based on everything that I do. And so I can't really be myself and relax, because everything I'm doing, I'm trying to think about, how is this perceived? How could this be viewed? How could she see me based on doing whatever it is? Whether that's, if she's walking on the outside next to the street, I'm like, oh, you walk on the inside with my friends. I don't even think about it. On a date, bro, I'm like, oh, maybe she doesn't want me to touch her right there, like on her waist, and move her aside. Like, I'm overthinking it way too much. And that's really what it comes down to. When you overthink too much, it's kind of like that meme where he said, a person who thinks
all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusion.
So if I'm sitting here overthinking it too much or looking at it as a negative, I'm going to be stagnant. I'm going to be frozen. I'm not going to be as fluid and creative as I can be. Now, does that mean there aren't instances and situations where you really need to think about the choice and decision that you're making? Absolutely not. There are definitely times you need to think, and sometimes where if that little gut feeling is telling you, you probably shouldn't be doing it, guess what? You probably shouldn't be doing it, right? So for some of those situations, it's good to have that internal compass. But for others, you have to really determine, is this something that is a fear, or this is that little instinct on you telling you, hey, this is bad, danger, danger, we should go away, right? So that's really something I've noticed about, again, that whole fear of rejection in this journey of self-discovery. So if that's something that you think you've been struggling with, I know it's something I've been struggling with, and I've just kind of been trying to, again, being a logical person, just trying to dissect the different pieces and figure out, why is it for one environment it's this, for another environment it's that. It's the same thing with basketball. I have no issues asking, hey, let's make a group chat. Let me get your number. Let me get your Instagram so we can hit you up. But when it comes to asking about skincare for my business, it's literally the same process, but in my mind, I psych it up as a different approach, right? And the reason that is because in a lot of ways, I feel like, oh, I'm asking them for money or I'm taking their money from them. When really, for basketball, I see it as something that's mutually beneficial. Whereas for skincare, in some situations, even still now, having been in business for 6 or 7 months, I still feel like it's a... So the point that I was saying is, for my business, I feel like it's not a mutual transaction. It's more like I'm taking something from them, right? Their money, their resources, their time, almost like I'm deceiving them, because in my mind, sometimes I feel like what I'm offering, I can't 100% guarantee it's going to work. Like, I know other people have used it and it's worked. I used it and it worked. But I'm like, man, if I'm going to put my word behind it, I kind of want to be able to know 100% for certain, for sure, it's going to work for you. And even though I can give them a refund, money back, we can try a different system. At the same time, I feel like because I put my word behind it and it didn't work for you, now I feel like I'm less credible, right? And again, that's a mind game that I play with myself, right? So at the end of the day, a lot of it just comes down to mentally how you look at and perceive things. And obviously in modern day society, are you standing on business in whatever it is that you're saying? And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that sometimes you're going to make the wrong judgment call. You're going to make a bad decision, a decision that you probably didn't want to, or one that you wanted to. And looking back at it, 2020 vision, hindsight, you're like, that wasn't the brightest decision I made. But, you live, you learn, and you just pray that in God's great master plan for you, He's planned and allotted for that bad decision that you make. He knew you were going to make it. And he's just hoping that you're going to stay as much to his course as he wants you to, right? So like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, peace.
Always been a status.